Yo, what's up, everybody? I can see the chat. I can see the chat if I get out of my all of my stuff. Hold on one second. I want to say what's up to everybody here. Test, check, chickadee, check, bang, bang. We good, fam. I don't know what was going on. I have no idea what's going on with my Twitch stream. Hold on one second. So yeah. This is I don't know what's been going on, but I've been having some major, I just read last night on Space Radio that there is a solar flare. There's a solar flare that was going on. Wait a minute, let me bring up my feed, y'all. Hold on. There's a solar flare that's going on. The 4th and the 5th of this month, which was literally just yesterday and the day before. And the solar flare affects obviously electronics, internet connection, satellite, stuff like that. Apparently, I'm thinking that it probably did affect not just like me, but like all these different major companies. It had to have, because Twitch has been being weird. StreamYard was weird last night. I mean, really weird. Like, I would click on something and there'd be like a 4-second delay sometimes. And I got a really good computer, up to date, software's good, everything's legit, but for some reason it was being odd. Like, there was just such a massive delay. I have no strikes here. I don't have any strikes. But whenever I try to look up my chatters, all of my followers, it said unknown. All of my followers were listed as unknown. I couldn't see any of them. And then when I went to see my page, everything was gone. All my videos were gone. Everything was gone. All of my stuff. And I was like, what? What did I do? What did I do? And I thought maybe somebody reported me or something, because I was, that we had a pretty, that video we watched yesterday was really explicit. It was not a very pleasant video to watch. So I wasn't sure if somebody got upset about how dare you talk about my space daddy like that? And then they reported me. That's what I thought. But, no, I guess it was just a glitch. I don't know. But I guess I'm okay now. You guys can see me. I can see you. Everything seems to be gravy. I'm looking at my feed right now, online and on the back end. Everything looks good. My schedule is there. I see everybody, all the chatters. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, today. Oh, there's not anything going on. What could we possibly talk about? There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, first of all. But secondly, today, just want to let you all know, we're going to be watching, this is going to be the entire show. Today is going to be a watch party, for the most part. We're going to watch something that I thought was really interesting. John Greenwald went on to Project Unity's YouTube channel, and they had a very, very healthy debate about the hearing, and about what their perspectives are on the hearing, how they think it affected the entire movement of disclosure, and it was healthy. Now, obviously, my position on Greenwald. You're gonna see Greenwald play this game. What's up, Black Ace Omega? You're gonna see Greenwald play this game where he's like, again, I argue with people like this all the time, where he tries to like suggest and allude to things, but he doesn't commit to it. So, for example, let's say that I said, man, listen, I really like, John Greenwald, but sometimes I wonder if he wears pink underwear at night. I'm not saying he does, but, it would kind of, there's somebody that said one time in an article that men who, have a website called Black Vault, they actually wear pink underwear. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that he does wear black or pink underwear. I'm not saying that he does. That's the kind of thing that like people like him do. They are able to like elude any real, I guess, they're good at misdirection. You try to pin them down on some of the things they say and say, hey, listen, what you just said was wrong and you're literally accusing somebody of something. But what they'll say, I never said that. I never said that. All I said was that there was a website. Isn't it just reporting am I just not reporting a fact? So now journalism is bad to do. It's bad for people to have journalistic integrity. Listen, I'm just trying to report on all sides. I just focus heavily on the side that makes someone look bad. How is that? You got to be a good journalist. What's up, Peanut? Now that I've prefaced my frustration with that little nugget there, let's do this. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna minimize it because the video is not important. And I am gonna, obviously this is gonna be a much more chill day. Hopefully I don't have any issues with the video feed anymore. So let's get started. It's literally about an hour and a half anyway, so we got to get started right away, and let's do this. Let's do this. I hear you, Garyoki. I can't even comment on some of the stuff that you're talking about because a lot of people do that, not just the Brit. A lot of American now are, man, it's really sick. There will not be any music until the very end, so let's do this, y'all. Hold on one second. This is a really good debate. I watched the entire thing. Full disclosure, I have seen this already. It is really good. Check it out. Hold on, let me turn off the other volume on the music there. Maximize.
Some people just don't know how to take an opposing view, and they really get into, and I know you've seen it too, trying to rhetoric that's not healthy online at all.
Trying to reveal people's personal information.
Okay, real quick, the whole idea of somebody not liking opposing views, that's a trick. He's tricking people right there. Because an opposing view is, like, I believe that you shouldn't, like, preemptively hurt someone or murder someone. And his opposing view would be like, well, you probably should be able to murder someone. And then people, I hear this a lot, y'all. Oh, you just don't like opposing views. How come you're discriminating against me because of my ideas? Well, your ideas are suggesting killing people. I'm not kidding. I've had debates like that.
Doxing and harassment, targeted harassment. It's just a really weird thing, man. Like, I don't know where exactly this all kind of catalyzed from, but it's just over the last few years, you've got these very aggressive and targeted harassers on Twitter, and they've kind of formed into these little groups, and they, all talk amongst themselves about how important they are, and they're bringing down the anti-disclosure enemies, and it's just like, you guys are batshit crazy, you know that, right? Like, you're actually just a bunch of crazy people.
So these bigger claims, I'm skeptical because we all should be,
and I cannot comment in the chat. So again, this is what I don't know what's going. I do not know what's going on, but I am unable to comment in the Twitch chat. I can't comment in it. I don't know what's going on, but YouTube is fine. For some reason, Twitch will not allow me to comment in the chat, and I can't see the chat either because Twitch won't pull up my feed. So as I'm looking at the just real quick, everybody, as I'm looking at you all right now, I can see YouTube just fine. Everything on YouTube's pulling up just fine. I can see myself. I see the chat. I can respond to the chat. When I go into Twitch right now, the feed is not. It's since yesterday at 3:42. There's no updates in the feed, and every time I try to post a comment, it says this action cannot be completed. Please try again later. It did the same thing to me yesterday. I do not know what's going on. I do not know what's going on. So sorry, but
and we should be able to fire back comfortably on the claim, and if they're telling the truth, then it absolutely won't matter. But I hope when it comes to Congress, their next step is to go to the root of what David Grush was saying. I have not seen any statements. I've tried myself. He said that he was going to give some stuff even after the hearing of names of where to go. I haven't seen it. Correct me if you've seen it, but I hope that happened. I hope that he turned around and said, here you go.
Me too.
Here's people to talk to.
Again, I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna try to do little commentary as possible, but I can't let this slide. He's playing this game where it's like, oh well, I didn't get the information, so I'm gonna cast doubt on this whole process. I'm gonna cast doubt on David Grush specifically. John Greenwald does not believe David Grush at all, and that's okay because again, he doesn't. I can understand somebody being skeptical of John Greenwald, but this is the problem with this kind of conversation here. This is a disingenuous perspective. David Grush cannot release classified information that would jeopardize national security. If he did, John Greenwald would be calling David Grush a traitor, just like he does with Edward. I believe he said something about Edward Snowden or maybe Julian Assange. He says that what they did was wrong. So what he's saying is, because he doesn't have the information, David Grush is probably not telling the truth. I mean, he says that this stuff, but I didn't see it. You're not the mother effing members of Congress, you idiot. I'm sorry, I get real worked up about this. I don't like when people because again, this is such a frustrating thing to look at when you're viewing this and you're hearing people do this these slick nuances of language where they try to throw in a little, but all they did was say they haven't seen it. So is it really bad? We're adults. We're old enough to know when somebody's being facetious, like I am all the time. We're old enough to know when somebody's using innuendo, when somebody's being suggestive. You can't have a relationship at all in society if you don't know social cues. John Greenwald is being disingenuous.
I'm glad David Grush was there. I think that was needed. He needed.
Real quick, the only reason he's saying that is because, and how do I know this? I'm speculating, to be clear, is because he thinks that he's saying that to be, I can't think of it. He's not being genuine. He doesn't really mean that. It's like if I saw somebody who's a liar, who's a known liar, and they come up there and they lie, they're about to lie again. I say, it's good. It's really good that they're up there in front of people to talk about that, because when they get caught, their butt is in trouble. This is the game that John Greenwald's playing right now.
Did to put his stuff under oath, and we need to at least pursue it. I have my skepticism, but taking that aside, I mean, this has to be done. It's gotten enough attention. But the witnesses...
It's gotten enough attention. Okay, Grandpa.
David Fravor and Ryan Graves, let me first say they nailed it. I mean, they're awesome. They were flawless in the testimony, convincing. All of that is great. But I think we need to move beyond that now, because I think that foundation...
After he craps on David Grush and then tries to suggest there's a little slick little suggestions here. Oh, Ryan Graves and David and Fravor were awesome. Yeah, they were great. Yeah, we know what's up, bro. He does not believe in any of this stuff
that we've laid through testimony, through witnesses that have come forward through the past 5.5 years. That's solid, man. Skeptics can't even fire at it. They'll try. But I mean, skeptics can't attack that because the foundation is there.
John, are you controlled opposition that's being incentivized or in any way financed by the Department of Defense?
Yes, I am. And also I date Susan Gao. Oh, shoot. Oops, sorry, I got a little overzealous on that. I got a little trigger happy. So he's gonna go into, I'm gonna skip the little intro here. We're gonna go straight because it gives a little advertisement. I'm not doing that.
We are Koyas Institute.
I'd love to get your overall assessment.
This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is a property of Project Unity on YouTube. Go to their YouTube channel and subscribe today.
Of the hearing, I think that's what everyone's talking about right now. So it'd be interesting to get your take on how you think it went, the kind of things that were discussed. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think it's a great development. I mean, of course, there's always something that you can say to want it different. It's never going to be perfect, no matter what they did. But I think it was a great development. I think it was something that needed to be done. I wish, though. I mean, this is kind of the pessimistic side of me on how it unfolded. I'm glad David Grush was there. I think that was needed. He needed to put his stuff
so that you can try to get him on something later on
under oath, and we need to at least pursue it. I have my skepticism, but taking that aside, I mean, this has to be done. It's gotten enough attention. But the witnesses, David Fravor and Ryan Graves, let me first say they nailed it. I mean, they're awesome. They were flawless in the testimony, convincing. All of that is great. But I think we need to move beyond that now, because I think that foundation that we've laid through testimony, through witnesses that have come forward through the past 5.5 years, that's solid, man. It doesn't, like, skeptics can't even fire at it. They'll try. But I mean, skeptics can't attack that because the foundation is there of testimony. So let's get beyond that. Let's figure out what agencies are covering this up. I've got my own list, and get the agency heads in there. And I think that Dr. Kirkpatrick has to sit side by side with David Grush. That has to happen, you know?
Like you said, David Grush was kind of...
You know that guy that's been calling David Grush a liar, and then David Grush is actually has to worry about his life because the people he works for are allegedly part of the people that are part of the ones who are causing him and his family distress? Yeah, they need to sit next to together in court. What in the mother F... Can you imagine telling somebody who's been harassed, yeah, I want you to sit next to your abuser when you go to court. Yeah, John Greenwald, you're a freaking journalist.
That guy that was giving those types of pointers, or at least saying that in a closed session he could give those very specific details about contractors and agencies. So I agree. I mean, I agree with you that having Fravor and Graves kind of rehash these stories, yes, a lot of people have heard them. I have to tell you, though, in the UK, I could stop most people in the streets. They've never heard of a Tic Tac, or unless it's a breath mint. And David Fravor or any of these guys. So it's good to reiterate, and I think it's good to get those statements on the record in testimonial form. But David Grush is the highlights of it, and he definitely is the one that's kind of going a little deeper into, here, these are the contractors, these are the agencies. And I know we didn't get any of that on the record in testimony, but I kind of didn't really expect him to divulge very specific details that are still currently under some form of murky classification. Even if it's a very murky, like, quasi-legal, quasi-illegal world, it's still just something that I think he can't just divulge in an open forum immediately.
Now, Project Unity is going to respectfully dismantle John Greenwald's position, but he doesn't do it in a way that's disrespectful or that's offensive. He does it very, very well. So I got to give him a lot of props for how he just did that just now. He's explaining to John Greenwald why David Grush can't just divulge information in the public in a public setting, because the information is obviously it's classified. Whereas John Greenwald is acting like he doesn't. I don't understand what classified means. Why can't he just tell me? He's doing it, and again, this is a guy who's been doing it for 20+ years, who's claiming to be a journalist and doesn't understand why somebody who has classified information and has signed NDAs and is worried for his life and his family's life will not divulge. I just can't figure out why this is a position anybody who claims to be a journalist would take. I don't get it.
And a lot of the skeptics have been focusing on that, kind of saying, well, nothing was actually said, and this doesn't prove that he actually knows anything. And I was like, well, I would say that the background of the ICIG confirming that he's got credible information, and the fact that he's actually willing to do this and put it into a testimonial form in Congress is certainly provocative evidence for him being in some way convinced of his own information. So, I mean, well, I know you said you feel like you've got some skepticism, so is that specifically in regards to David Grush himself, or just the situation in general? Like, how are you feeling?
Well, yeah, and the claims, and let me first say, because I think you really hit it there, the ICIG should be the...
It's the claims he doesn't like. He does not believe anything that David Grush says. It has nothing to do with whether or not David Grush is authentic, if his testimony is authentic, if he thinks he's telling the truth, if there's been corroborating people, for example, the ICIG, who said that the information that he's presented is credible and urgent. Doesn't matter about any of that stuff. He just doesn't like the claims. That's not journalism.
The one that's being grilled. And the reason I say that is it's in the public realm that they found his claim credible. But none of us, me included, you, anybody, can say exactly why, right? I mean, that's something I think we can all agree on. Why did they feel that way? Did they see something? Did they talk to a witness? Do they have evidence? Whatever that may be, that's why I think the ICIG should be one of a group of people that should have been up.
You don't put people who are who are involved in an investigation about claims of people being threatened with their lives. You don't put those people in the public to answer to people like John Greenwald. It doesn't. This is not. Listen. I get it. We're commentators. He's allegedly a journalist. He's got a lot. And by the way, the dude's been doing this for 20+ years. He's doing something in the field. The problem is that he's acting like he's never done this before in his freaking life. I just don't understand why these processes can't be broken for the first time for me. Grow up, dude.
They're being grilled. Because again, all of that now is in the public realm, something that's solidified. So let's find out why. And if they refute it, let's hear that too. But I mean, at this point, I think they would have if that was a lie. So again, Grush should be there. But I think, again, this shouldn't have been a hearing that was an hour and a half or 2 hours, but rather a couple days. And I think that you really should see those agency heads in there that play a role in the obfuscation of all of this and have done so for decades. Now, to your question about my skepticism, I mean, yeah, look, the bottom line is he's coming forward with claims that, if you really dissect them, are not really that drastically different than what we've heard before. You've got parallels between even the Wilson Davis notes, just to bring that up. So there's parallels there between what he's claiming and stories like that. Now, true or not, there are parallels nonetheless. So my skepticism is, what can we do to bridge the gap between these types of stories and claims and solidifying it as fact? And I mean truly solidifying it, that will turn the heads of not only people like me who kind of are the battle back and forth with what exactly are we dealing with, but even the hardcore people that are like, no, there's no chance in hell there's anything extraterrestrial about this or non-human or whatever. What will convince the masses? And that's what we have to try and get to. I'm not sure what the answer is other than the obvious, like bring forward the evidence, like a physical something from one of these crafts. But that's where I say turning up the heat is where we need to go. And although, again, I want to continue to punch the point, I've got nothing against Graves' testimony or Fravor. They nailed it. But we've solidified that now. We've got congressional funding for this reason because that foundation is solid. So now get the agency heads in there, and not what I would call a softball hearing like Dr. Kirkpatrick. And not like that. I mean, we need to truly push for answers and get a Secretary of Defense level someone in there, if not the Secretary of Defense. The DOD's Inspector General. So we talked about the ICIG, the Inspector General for the intelligence community, but the DOD Inspector General has run an evaluation on UAP now for years. That was announced in 2021. So what is it that they're doing? And we have had zero update. So if there's something criminal, I get it. Maybe they can't go there in an open setting. They can go to certain places, though, and let us.
That's literally what they are doing right now. What is he talking about? I can talk about that with you in a skiff. I can talk about that with you in a classified setting. I can talk about that with you in a skiff. They're doing that right now. You genius. This is what.
No, what have they done since 2021? So that's the heat. That's what I want to see. And you see it, to close the thought, you see it outside of the UFO arena. I mean, I'm not looking for a WWE matchup here. I want to see what we see in other hearings outside of the UAP arena, because I'm one of those geeks that watches those things. That's what I want. That's what we have to have in the UFO side of all this. But we don't, and I don't know why. I really don't.
Well, I mean, okay, so I agree to an extent, but I'd also say, and it's funny, it's interesting, an interesting difference between us, and I guess this kind of does draw correlations to the Wilson documents, is that your element that draws skepticism is that this isn't something new, that we've heard these stories before. And for me, my element of optimism is like, well, it's kind of reiterating stories we've heard before. It's confirming, it's adding another layer of legitimacy because it's now under oath in a congressional setting. So I actually spoke about that in the video I did recently where I was talking about the hearing, and I was just saying that, you know, the fact that this is now being put into sworn testimony, that there are these programs that are dealing with non-human vehicles, they're reverse engineering them. I mean, I would say that adds another level of potential credence to these previous claims from Admiral Bobby Ray Inman and Bob Exler, and then, you know, the Admiral Wilson documents. And so I understand what you're saying about the heat being turned up, but I would also say that this is an element of the heat being turned up. It's not necessarily the largest temperature difference, but the fact that we've now got this GS-15 or former GS-15 intelligence officer under oath coming in with stuff we've never heard before. In terms of the public discussion in government and Congress, we have not heard that type of language being used about non-human retrieval and re-engineering programs. And so that's certainly a few degrees up from where we were maybe even a few months ago. So the process...
I'm talking about under oath or just in general?
Well, just in general, but I would also say that having...
Yeah, on top of the fact, again, this Project Unity, Jay from Project Unity is doing a freaking fantastic. I really respect this guy, regardless of all the controversy that he obviously has in this field. I gotta respect him. The dude he's an intelligent person. He speaks eloquently. He's very well educated. He's an actual journalist. I respect his journalistic integrity. I believe he has journalistic integrity. This is how you're supposed to dismantle these fools.
This guy under oath in a congressional setting giving sworn testimony about these kind of things does in some way, at least to me, to an extent, validate or further validate the potential that these other stories that we've heard over the many years may be close to the truth about the existence of these programs. And the fact that he's actually in this setting giving this testimony next to Graves, next to Fravor, is a signifier of the temperature going up a little bit. And maybe this is the precursor towards those types of more revealing hearings where real evidence is discovered. I mean, the amount of times he was referencing, and if this is, sincere and he's got real information to share, the amount of times he was referencing, look, we can talk about that in a closed session, we can talk about that in a skiff, I've got very specific details I can give you in a skiff. These people have to give it to them. Some of these congressmen, they were asking some good questions, kind of questions you'd expect people from this community to ask who've got background knowledge and want to ask very specific details. So it just makes me think, right, well, if everything goes the way that we would love it to go, he's now arming these people with the kind of information and knowledge they need to press further investigations into these agencies, into these contractors. Whether it will bear any fruit, I don't know, man, but it just feels like this is certainly at least a step. It's a step. Whether or not there's other things at play, it does feel like a significant step.
And there's no argument from me on that. In fact, minutes after the debate, I had tweeted that out and X'd it out. How do you say that now? I don't even know. Regardless, posted it.
It took me about 10 minutes this morning to find my Twitter app because it suddenly became an X.
X, yeah, exactly. But yeah, and that's why I wanted it, known right away. I mean, the hearing was better than I thought, so it was a step. I mean, my I don't even want to call it pessimism. Just kind of like the only thing that I would say that's not like, hey, this was a great step, was I wish we could have had David Grush's sources there. And just to clarify one thing, I'm not skeptical of
what. I'm trying not to curse here, okay? But what the mother freak is he talking about? If anybody in my chat agrees with this, I'm not going to engage with you on these kind of topics because I am not a journalist. I'm a commentator. The problem with this statement that John Greenwald made is everything, but I wish he would have had some of his sources there. Are you seriously? I can't imagine this being a genuine position. I can't imagine this. Like, I would say, Bad Daddy, check out the YouTube videos before you buy it because I bought it for the sake of like people, more views. It's great, but like, there's a lot of issues at the moment where people are complaining about the balance issues for the game. But anyway, sorry. So do I need to explain this to everybody? Do I need to explain this seriously? If you reveal your sources in the public view, then guess who knows who your sources are? The people that want to kill you now know who else they need to target. How much of a freaking insane person must you be to have this position? Why didn't he have his sources? Why didn't he expose his sources? What?
Grush's claims because we've heard them before.
Okay, the sources, all 40 of them, all right, at least a portion of those 40, spoke to the ICIG, including people who know about murder. Do you go and you take a witness and then put them in the public view? Do you do that during a murder investigation? I want anybody to answer that question. If your answer is yes, you're in the wrong place. We don't do stupid here.
That's not really why I'm skeptical. I want to know what the root of this all is, because we're always kind of like one way, away from that information. So it could all just be the same people. And I think that that's where we need to go. Now, I understand, like, the pushback on that ideology and mindset is the fact that they need to stay anonymous because they've got current working jobs. And I understand that. But
he understands that, but literally he started this by saying, why didn't they have it? Which means he doesn't understand it. He's playing, this is a game. This is a back and forth game. It's exactly what people who have, again, this is people who are clearly they're not a genuine, like, they don't have a genuine, there's something just very dishonest about John Greenwald. The way that he talks about this thing, the way that he has this double speak, Listen, I think they should have revealed their secrets, but I get why they didn't reveal it. I really do understand, but why didn't they reveal their secrets? But I really understand why they didn't.
What I hope Congress understands also is let's figure out what the root of these claims are. And I'm super intrigued by these, I think it's 3, at least that's the rumor.
David Grush spoke to 40 witnesses over 3 years or 4 years. That is the number. He spoke to around 40 witnesses over 4 years. That is what it is. Now, I get it. It's hard to keep up with all this stuff. I spend too much time on the internet. I get it. But John Greenwald, you have these positions, and yet you haven't even looked into, you don't even know what you're talking about.
That they wanted, that there were pushbacks, so they backed out.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of controversy that's going on behind the scenes. I want to know why. Because the whistleblower protection to some point is there. So what were they afraid of?
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is if they're backing up Grush, according to the story, and this is a whole red flag for me.
He calls it a story. You know why he calls it a story? He calls it a story because he's saying it's a fairy tale. He's literally, again, this is a game. This is a word game. It's a game. It's a story. It's a story. It's a story. Now, you could say that as a journalist, you would say story because when you have a story, you tell a story, right? That's what your reporting is. You're doing stories on these different topics, right? But when John Greenwald is mixing all of this other language amongst this story narrative that he's putting into this conversation, he's literally just crapping on the entire thing.
I'm not sure if you want to chat about it, but the whole fact that the DOD through Dopser reviewed what Grush was going to claim in the News Nation interview, why can't we have people that at least support the exact same thing? Because it's clear. The DOD cleared it, right? We can all agree on that, too. That's how the story goes.
His justification or his reasoning behind that was that they're just reviewing, because I thought the same thing of like, well, they've cleared him, they've given him a green light for this, but at least his explanation is they're just looking for kind of like security issues and national security.
Correct.
And so even if it's like very provocative language, if it's not specifically revealing a problem, they kind of give it the green star. For example, John Ramirez, he put out this pretty lengthy presentation on my channel that he had to get cleared through the CIA, through the agency, and they cleared that, but they didn't necessarily endorse all of the opinions and topics that he was discussing in that presentation. So, yeah, do you think he's a legitimate whistleblower? Like, do you think that he's a plant, someone who's kind of been put into this and he's an asset being utilized, or is he a free-thinking individual who's, kind of woken up and gone, you know what, I need to talk to the ICIG? Like, do you think he's 100%? How do you feel about Grush?
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, it's so hard to comment on that without it seeming to be personal, but to be honest with you, I truly believe that
It's personal. Listen to this. I've done this when I'm like, listen, I hate to say this, but I don't hate to say this. I want to say this desperately. I don't want to seem like, I don't want to reveal my real intentions here, but let me tell you my real intentions.
Believes what he's saying. So the people that he talked to, whomever that may be, I do believe that he likely believes it. I don't get the whole he's making it all up vibe. There are certain people out there away from this hearing. But in this whole UFO conversation that, you can kind of deduce they're likely just making the whole darn thing up. They're selling their books, subscriptions, and stuff like that, all based on fabrication.
I'd love to know who he's talking about. I want to know who he's talking about.
I don't get that vibe from Grush. I in fact, never did. One of the first reaction videos that I did on this was essentially saying if you doubt him or question the claims, are you brandishing him a liar? And the answer to that is no, at least not from my standpoint. And why I say that is he could absolutely believe everything that he was told. And maybe what he was able to fact check, again, to a point checked out, and that was good enough for him.
What does that even mean? Maybe to a point that he can fact check to. What does he mean by that? What does he mean by that? Think about what actually happened. David Grush didn't just hear something from someone that he liked, just a buddy, okay? He didn't just hear something from a buddy, okay? That's not how it works. What happened was, yeah, you're right. Black Ace Omega, 100%, dude. I can't approve that, but I'm reading your comment. You can curse if you want to, just it's between me and you. But yes, Black Ace Omega, it is BS, okay? Now listen, John Greenwald's, again, this is the game. This is the game. He's reframing the truth about this situation here. Whitley Strieber, I can't say anything about Whitley because, yeah, a lot of people feel this. Some people feel the same way. I can't say anything about Whitley. I like Whitley. I have to respect him for all of the work he's done. I can't say whether he's telling the truth or not. We just have to. It's up to each individual person to believe that. To be honest, I think that you are well within your right to believe that. But John Greenwald, again, David Grush spent 4 years investigating. He has names, locations, project names, program names. He knows about the people that are working on the project right now. And he's like, oh, he just heard stuff from people. That is a mischaracterization of what's true. And he's doing it to purposefully try to water down what's actually going on right now. Listen, y'all, this guy is either a disinformation agent by accident or he's just a disingenuous person, willfully ignorant, willfully.
That's not meant to be insulting.
Unlike me, some people think that I'm just an ignorant black guy.
That just means that he believes what he's saying.
But you're saying that maybe the information itself might not be as reliable as he believes it to be.
Well, it depends on who his sources are. I mean, what if it is revealed that he is, because these, let me start that over. It has been revealed. Let me start that over.
Listen to me. Do you think, I know what he's talking about. He does not like Jeremy Corbell. He does not like George Knapp. And now he can say, oh, I respect them, while he's simultaneously disrespecting them in this very moment right now. He hasn't called them out by name. Again, I'm speculating. I get that. But who do you think he's talking about? Who has he spent all of his time debunking? Who? And so the funny thing about this is this. I'm sure you're well aware of that, Drunk Physics. The funny thing about that is this, okay? This guy is clearly trying to manipulate the narrative of this situation.
Christopher Mellon, Luis Elizondo, that whole group.
That's who he doesn't like. Who is his sources? Christopher Mellon, Luis Elizondo. That's who he thinks, because he doesn't like Elizondo and Mellon, he's gonna crap on this witness altogether. That's what he's gonna do.
Has known him for years. He was at a UFO conference where Eric Davis was there, and I believe Jay Stratton was there. So when you have all of those people that are running together, are those his sources? Did he get kind of pulled into that?
I mean, he does say that I think he said he has like 30 or 40 individuals he spoke to over a 4-year period. So as much as they could be a part of that pool, I don't think they're representative of like the entire spectrum of people he's been exposed to. And it's one of those, man, like, because I know how you feel about, that particular kind of group of people, and I've had similar misgivings about what exactly their motives are, and I'm in a bit of a weird position with it because I really appreciate what's happened in terms of the momentum that's been pushed forward with this discussion, and it's legitimized it, it's, destigmatized the issue in the wider public and in the journalistic realm and the scientific and political realm. But yeah, there have been some weird moments with this whole thing, and like TTSA itself was pretty weird and dodgy and like kind of gave us a bit of a misdirection of its real purposes, because now it's just a media agency, and before it was promising an electrogravitic platform to its shareholders. So, it's a slight transition in its mission objective. So there's definitely been some weird stuff, and again, another TTSA issue that people just seem to brush under the carpet was the acquisition of all of these different materials that then went into a military cooperative research and development agreement with the US Air Force, and they just popped off the map.
Army.
They've just popped off the map. So there's definitely issues, but at the same time, these guys in government, I mean, it's like, could they not just be people in government who happen to be interested like us in this issue and had a level of access, and one of them was involved in a program that was at least looking at these kind of things. And so, yeah, they would know David Grush. They've got pretty high clearances. People like Lou and Chris, Deputy Sec of Defense or Intelligence. And I know what you're saying about like, oh, he's involved with the same kind of, he like runs in the same circles, but it's kind of like, well, yeah, of course he runs in the same circles because these are the UFO types in the government, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're blinded by an agenda or bias. They could.
Again, Project Unity, Jay is doing a and by the way, Bad Daddy, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Jay is doing a fantastic job right now. Fantastic. I respect, again, despite the controversy, and I don't agree with everything that Jay says, this is a great conversation.
Could genuinely want to try and get this out. So I don't know what to think, to be honest, about that whole situation of him being associated with those types of people, because it kind of feels like you would be when you're in the process of coming out with, like, I want to speak, I want to blow the whistle.
John Greenwald, I don't like that he's talking to people that have information about this phenomenon. I really don't like it. I think it's wrong. I think, honestly, it says a lot about his character. This is literally the take of John Greenwald. You mean you don't like that he's talking to people that are aware of information that has been, that is involved with the cover-up? You don't want him to talk to those people? Why? Because you don't like them. Well, grow up, John Greenwald. Just because you're not on the inside doesn't mean that. Oh my God! It's honestly about ego. It's about ego. It's all about ego. I've noticed it's about Greenwald, where he gets upset about people that haven't given him the information. Why haven't you given me? This is why he likes Susan Gal, because she slips him little love letters in his mailbox at nighttime when he asks her, "Hey, honey, can you send me a little something tonight? I really appreciate that. Can you throw a little something extra in there so I can smell it at nighttime?" You know what I'm talking about. That's all it's about.
I want to talk to the ICIG. Well, who's been laying the public groundwork for the past couple of years? People like Chris and Lou, and so it makes sense that he would kind of, flow into that channel if he was actually coming out with this stuff. But I mean, what does your intuition tell you right now about him? Do you think that he's, sincerely trying to get information out that he thinks is real? I mean, do you think that there are programs, personally? Do you think there are programs that are dealing with intact vehicles and reverse engineering?
I mean, there's a couple loaded questions there. The one about...
Sorry, I've thrown a load on you there.
No. That's okay. When it comes to David Grush himself, I will admit that the hearing was a much more impressive display than I felt from the News Nation interview. It was the way he delivered it. I'm sure they practiced, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the delivery was a lot different. The claims were also not as explosive. We heard biologics, the word biologics, and that's fine. And everybody started Googling that, I'm sure, because we heard dead non-human pilots in the News Nation interview. To me, that's a much different way to say it.
I was going to ask you how you felt about the biologics comment.
Well, he was much different in his wording. And there were a couple moments that, again, let me stress, I mean, I was much more impressed with the...
Drunk Physics, maybe I didn't go over this, but he literally cannot stand Elizondo. He absolutely has a... I mean, hatred is obviously a strong word. I'm obviously inflating that term. But the idea that he has some kind of disdain for Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, Tom, yes, he absolutely does. And so it really does paint his entire perspective about David Grush. It's why he's so quote unquote skeptical and measured about David Grush.
Display and the presentation of information in Congress. If that was all I saw, it would be a little bit different. But juxtaposing that with the News Nation interview, the language was different. Now, what changed? And that's what I want to know.
If you have half a brain, you know that biologics means the same exact thing that he meant when he said dead pilots. Why would I say that? Well, am I inferring? This is something that Drunk Physics called me out on in the debate. I infer a lot. This is a fact. This is something I cannot escape, and I have to. This is a weakness of mine that I have to be more honest about. I am inferring that based off of the fact that this entire hearing is about literally alien, sentient, non-human intelligences that can build spacecraft and fly through the air. Biologics is probably talking about those kinds of things and not plants and animals like Neil deGrasse Tyson mentioned. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. If you ignore literally every single thing that happened up to this point, you could probably conclude, this is ambiguous. Biologics is such an ambiguous word.
No, like, what is different? Is it because he was under oath? Is it just simply because he delivered it in a different way? And that's fine too. But the word biologics, the immediate shoot down of the word extraterrestrial or alien to
He didn't shoot. Oh my god.
go to non-human, and then that explanation.
Okay, David Grush also, guess what else David Grush said during that interview? He mentioned what's called the holographic theory. Why would he mention the holographic theory if he's talking about freaking plants and animals, you idiot? Why would he do that? Can somebody please tell me that I'm not the only one who knows? Am I the only one who's catching this? Or am I just a crazy conspiracy theorist who's making, drawing connections that don't exist? Please somebody tell me I'm not. Am I crazy here?
I was happy to get that explanation, don't get me wrong, but it was just something that stuck out to me, that the language choices are very, very interesting to me. We had touched on Dopser, and I think it fits in.
I just don't understand what it means. I don't get it. I know what he said, but I don't get what it means. If you ignore everything, oh my gosh.
Here, because I want to go back to it. Credit to David Grush for saying they only look for that security violation in anything that he was going to say. However, since the News Nation interview and now the congressional hearing, we have yet to see what he gave to the DOD for clearance, and I want to know why. Even Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna brought it up in the hearing. Now, with respect to the Congresswoman, I think she's a little bit maybe misunderstood on what that process is, because she says, well, it really helps your credibility. And again, credit to David Grush, who said, hey, look,
Correct, sir.
I had to, yeah.
I'd go to jail.
Exactly. And so again, credit to him for saying that, because that's true. It's not an endorsement. They don't fact check. If he was writing...
Just to be clear, what John Greenwald is suggesting is that he didn't explicitly say this, but if you've ever been in a social environment and had conversations, now I get it, antisocial people, they can't see these connections, but like if you're a social human being and have had like friends and stuff, and you've been through life and you have hang out with people in school, you'll notice that what John Greenwald is suggesting here is, listen, David Grush's testimony is the validity or the authenticity of his testimony is based off of the Dopser review, but the Dopser review is just saying that you haven't violated any security clearances. It has nothing to do with authenticity or truthfulness of the claims. Well, guess what? David Grush mentioned that. So John Greenwald, at the same time he's trying to discredit the authenticity of the argument by throwing in the Dopser review conversation that David Grush literally dispute. He's like, no, that doesn't mean that this stuff it doesn't mean they endorse me. That just means that they said it's cleared for and it doesn't violate any national security secrets or NDAs. David Grush did that himself. So why are you even bringing it up?
A completely fabricated children's book, he would have...
Why would you compare his story to a children's book? Did anybody else catch that? A completely... it's just a random... If this is a completely fabricated children's book, they'd approve that too. Do you think that... Does anybody have friends? Or have you ever had friends? I'm telling you guys, from my personal perspective, I have to be, clear. John Greenwald is trying to discredit and belittle this entire situation.
Have to do the exact same thing, submit what he was going to be publishing to ensure that anything that he put into this child's book was not, against his security clearance.
So did I make that up myself, or did John Greenwald suggest that if David Grush gave a children's book story, it would also be approved by Dopser because it doesn't violate any national security or anything like that? Listen, you can say, anybody in the chat, if you want to, you can say I'm inferring. I get it. I do that a lot. But if you're intelligent enough, you can infer a lot of things and find truths that they're not explicitly said. They're not explicitly within your view. But some things have to be inferred, especially when secrets are being kept. You have to discover them.
Or any classified information.
You're my friends. What are you talking about?
Information was entwined.
Some of you are my friends.
Into a children's novel. So that being said, why won't they publish that? And it's fully cleared. There's no personally identifying information in it. And if there is, by all means, redact that. However, it's cleared by the DOD. They're bringing up that fact in the congressional hearing. So what I want to know is, were the pilot bodies referenced in there? Was the craft?
He had to have his comments cleared by Dobser before he had the News Nation interview. And in the News Nation interview, he said that people have been killed. There are non-human intelligent biological beings that are operating these craft. Some of them have been recovered. Craft have been recovered. We have several of them. All of that stuff, he claims, was cleared by Dobser before that interview on News Nation. The answer is yes, doofus. Plus, he kept saying, I refer you to my comments in the News Nation interview. Hello.
We could assume so by what was reported, but as each day passes and they don't show us what the DOD actually did look at, that makes me question why. Because they felt the need from day one to say it.
I want you guys to think about something else. Who's in control of that Dobser information, that Dobser review information? Is David Grush in control of it? No? Oh, the DOD. Oh, okay. So basically, it isn't David Grush that has to release that information. Why is John Greenwald going after David Grush and the Congress people for not releasing a Dobser review that isn't even in their power to do it? It's within the power of the Department of Defense. How is this man considered a journalist? How?
In the original debrief article and now the hearing, and they won't show it, and I want to know why.
Have you been...
Who's they, John? Is it David Grush? Why don't you direct your criticism to your buddy Susan Gao, genius?
Submitting like a request to try and gain that?
Yeah, oh yeah, that first day.
Yeah.
And you know, it wasn't as much of a red flag in the very beginning as it became as they just continued to reference it. That's the other thing. It wasn't just referenced and kind of forgotten. They keep going back to it about this Dobser review, and now again, perfectly solidified.
Who's they? This is the kind of analysis that any freaking high school kid could have figured this out in literally day one. The Department of Defense has the Dobser submission. The Department of Defense is the one who would release the Dobser submission. The fact that David Grush and others have pointed to the Dobser review is letting you know that they are not afraid of what's in that Dobser review. Who is? The Department of Defense, Susan Gao. Why are you not directing your animosity towards them? Why are you not directing your skepticism towards them? Because you are either a government op or you're just a willful idiot or a useful idiot.
That even a congresswoman is saying this helps his credibility. Again, I respectfully disagree with her packaging of that statement, but regardless, everybody's looking at that Dobser review as, hey, look, he did the right thing. Okay, let's see it. You know,
nobody's looking at that Dobser review like, hey, he did the right thing. He did the right thing to keep himself out of jail, doofus. But again, what is it? Oh my God, I gotta listen. I'm getting all fired up here already. I watched this already, and I'm still fired up over this crap.
Oh, and the other thing too that was kind of a red flag for me was the original Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean article, when she was asked by now multiple people, but in the beginning, I think it was Chrissy Newton, and she did an excellent interview. She's great with her questions. But she did an interview, and Leslie Kean really pushed back on the whole, I don't want to talk about bodies thing. He never talked to us about.
The reason why she didn't want to talk about bodies thing isn't because she doesn't believe him. It's because she said it's too much for the American people to handle. She literally said that's too much ontological shock. She wanted to be able to get the information that she could verify as well. That information couldn't be corroborated until you actually get into the facilities and capture the information. So obviously, what she wanted to do as an actual journalist, John Greenwald, is get verifiable information out to the public. Put that put that as a focus of her article, because that's what needs to be focused on for the time being. Talking about aliens is too much ontological shock because the kind of claims that she's heard are way too... It's too much. It's too much for people. They can't... Look at you. You can't even handle what's being said right now. You're rejecting everything that's being said right now. How much worse would it be if Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal would have posted all that they know or anything they know about the aliens and stuff? He would have been even further... Listen to this. The claims are outlandish. Why? He's talking about alien bodies. But you want them to talk about, you want Leslie Kean to make the same mistake that you're saying that David Grush made. What? How could, he's talking out of both sides of his rear end, guys. This is we're watching in real time John Greenwald grift. This is a mega grift right here.
Out that. that
Make America grift again. John Greenwald, MAGA.
to me is if you're an unbiased journalist, in my view, this is just an opinion, but if you're truly approaching something in an unbiased manner, and a whistleblower is coming to you, and he's claiming non-human craft, and then like really puts the icing on the cake and said, yeah, they were dead pilots to go along with it. Why would you omit the biggest part?
For the same reason that you said that it's a ridiculous claim, and you don't like the biggest problem you have with this whole situation are the claims that he's making. That's why it's too much for even you to handle, John Greenwald. If she would have done that, you'd be up here talking about, well, where are the bodies at then? I want to see the bodies then. Until I see the bodies, I think that Leslie King wasn't doing a great job. You would have done the same thing you're doing. You would have done the same thing that you're doing to David Grush, to Leslie King and Ralph Blumenthal. They did exactly what they should have done. They did exactly what they should have done.
Part of that story.
Well, I guess is a fear of the optics of how people are going to receive something like that. I mean, like, hats off to Ross for just letting the guy say that kind of stuff on the record, but yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, if he's been validated, his position's clear, he's extremely high level U.S. intelligence senior, then yeah, I'd post that. If he said that this was part of the evidence, I would personally post that. But I know that they were, I think, concerned that this was going to be one of those elements of the story that would end up damaging it. But then if
it was one of those elements of the story that would end up damaging it, just like John Greenwald is literally, how are you doing this? I really hope people are seeing what I'm seeing here, and I'm not just, again, I get frustrated because I don't know if people are being disingenuous or not, but there's a lot of people who do not see what I'm talking about.
If you don't put it in and people find out that it was part of the thing, part of the story that he was giving, then it's like, well, why didn't you include that? So,
but his credibility stays the same across the board with the claims that he's making. That's my bigger point. Is that if you are presenting his story and what he's blowing the whistle on, in just a very objective, here you go, here's the facts of what he's saying, omitting what he's saying for optics, that to me was a concern. Now, it is fair that if for whatever reason David Grush just happened to have never brought it up to them, but then later did to Ross Coulthard, okay, fine. But I would love to see that Dopser paperwork then, because if it was in there, I took away from the article that they saw that clearance from the DOD. And if bodies were in there, then, we have a couple more questions to ask. If they're not, then that...
If it is, you're going to rip that apart too, John. That's all you're going to do, dude.
That also adds to the story. So either way, that's where that Dopser paperwork becomes key. You asked if I filed the request. Absolutely. I'm trying to get it. Those things are open. I've got a bunch of either they did a DD Form 1910 or maybe just wrote a letter. But regardless, it seems like he wrote a letter. It was probably 4 pages in length. The reason why we know that, for those who aren't aware, is it appears to have been given to News Nation. At least, at the very least. We're led to believe it was given to Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kane as well, probably the debrief editors. So if all of them can see it...
Why can't we?
Why can't we? And the only defense I gave it up until last Wednesday was, were there elements in there that were cleared, but they were hanging on to it for if he ever testified under oath to bring forward new details. And I didn't like that, but I did lend that possibility to the situation. And obviously we didn't really hear anything more. Arguably, we heard a little bit less.
Are there any other reasons that you could think of for withholding this publicly?
The Dopser request that he submitted?
Yeah.
After the hearing, no. If this conversation took place before I knew he was going to testify, I would say maybe in event in the future he will come out with more information. Again, didn't like that, but that was a possibility. But if if there was more information that was cleared, that congressional hearing was the place to do it, and we didn't hear it. So now the question mark is why. And I really can't. I'm open to ideas. I just, the whole process is not supposed to be a private communication between him and his former employer, but rather it is to show what he can say in the open. And so,
dude, I'm concerned about John Greenwald. I'm really concerned. Like, I'm saying this seriously because I feel like John Greenwald would, like, He's the kind of person in the movie, in a movie where, like, let's say there's a pandemic going on, and everybody's dying, and everybody's, like, there's like increases in cases, and he's the journalist who's like, it's all fake. The government is just lying to you. All those scientists and stuff, they're not telling you the truth. They just want to keep you suppressed. Like, he's that guy who's gonna get more people killed. He's literally suggesting for David Grush to reveal and expose his sources in a public view, while they're literally under threat of violence and career defamation. Why would you want that unless you want to hurt the people who are making these claims? He wants to hurt whistleblowers. He wants to hurt them. He wants them to lose their lives. He wants them to expose themselves, while he then simultaneously dismantles their claims and then finds ways to try to poke holes in them. So they not only will they be considered liars, but then they get killed by or they either, the worst case scenario is they die, they get assassinated or have some untimely car accident, or they end up shooting themselves in a hotel room somewhere, or they fall out of a window somewhere, or maybe they just simply lose their job and their career and never get to work in a position again, and all these claims get pushed back under the rug. He wants there to be no disclosure, so he keeps on posting these freaking blacked out redacted files for the rest of his life. He needs it. This is a business model. This is an advertisement for his business. Guys, who needs the truth when you got my redacted documents on theblackvault.com?
So now that he's testified under oath, I would hope that 100% of what he's cleared to essentially give to the public is already out there. So we shouldn't learn anything new. So no, I can't think of any other reason, not after the hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand that, because I'd love to see what he'd submitted. I'd love to see what he submitted to get cleared through. I assumed prior to learning a bit more about it that they had actually, basically backed him up on this, and I was like, whoa, hang on a second, like the DOD's behind him on all these claims. But no, it does seem to be more about, security violations and any sort of classified information. I mean, ideally, where would you like to see the hearings leading, let's say, over the next 6 to 12 month period? If things happen the way that you would like them to happen, what does that look like? What trajectory does that look like?
Yeah, just revisiting my comments earlier about agency heads in there. I mean, I think that if David Grush gave them kind of a blueprint of where to go, a roadmap, if you will, of the different agencies or different people, then the representatives of those agencies should be in an open forum and pressed. And you don't even...
Now, that's a true statement, right? The people that are behind this alleged cover-up should be presented in front of Congress. They should be in the public view. They should be grilled and for us all to see. That's the only... But again, think about how much time he spent just dismantling David Grush and focusing on him and attacking his claims and attacking the nature of how he's done this the proper way, through the proper channels and through the proper modalities. He's attacked all that, but then he spent like a couple seconds here. Okay, yeah, they should bring those people out too.
Even have to tread into classified territory to do that. I truly believe there's enough in the public realm through all different agencies that can show their hand in this secrecy that stretches back decades, not just in the last couple of years, but rather as a whole. And that's where I'd love to see this go. That's where I wish it went last Wednesday. But I understand. Fine, I'll be patient. I hope it's not 6 months to a year. It probably will be. You're right on that. I just wish it wasn't. I mean, we're dealing with something that is a big topic to humanity. I mean, full stop. It doesn't matter where you sit on the fence. The implications are staggering. So let's move forward with this. Let's try and figure out, is there fruit here? Is there something that we can sink our teeth into and reveal to the public? And I think although national security will play a role, I truly hope that scientific advancement and knowledge for humanity, as cheesy as that may sound, will trump that. At least the parts where we can now confirm, yes, by the way, these allegations are true. We have had technology recovered, or something to that effect. That shouldn't be a threat to national security. I would think that it would be, which, again, I'm kind of contradicting myself here.
Yep.
But let's face it, he said that there were these programs in that DOPSA review. DOD says it's not a security risk or treading on classified information. So how can you classify something they already said isn't classified? So there's a lot of ways to kind of approach this that
he didn't even, again, think about how hard he went on David Grush and all his connections and all. Think about how hard he just spent the last hour doing that. And he spent a couple. Oh yeah, the DOD. I don't know why that's always gonna. He's not gonna attack them. He's not gonna target them. He's not gonna assault like he just did with David Grush. He's not gonna question the intentions of the DOD. He's not gonna do any of that stuff. He's not gonna do anything like that. That's disingenuous.
I think that they can bring this stuff into a public hearing, get those agency heads involved in the seat, and turn up the heat. And that's what I think needs to be done. They need to address it. I'll give you a prime example of where I'm going with this. Look at the hearing where they put in the Wilson Davis notes into the record, that they were asking Scott Bray and Ronald Moultrie about the claims. They were clueless. Let's just assume for a moment they truly were. I don't buy it, even though I have, again, my...
He also messed up the introductions of that, and I think he said, like, Dr. Wilson and Eric.
Yeah.
And so, like...
He botched it, of course.
I actually thought to myself, like, if they're really smart, because he botched it...
Don't correct him.
Don't correct him, so I have no idea who these people are. Never heard of them, but I thought the same thing when that happened. Of course, they know something. They must have heard something about that.
Yeah, and especially if they truly were looking at the topic, because that's been in the spotlight, in the forefront of this conversation.
Right.
So look how much time, as you and I speak right now, that's elapsed since then. And it was just about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks, within the last few weeks, that Billy Cox interviewed Thomas Wilson and said nobody from Congress has yet to give him a call. So during this process, during a hearing where stuff is submitted into the record, agency heads were questioned but not pressed. That's where, again, I say turn up the heat. They didn't have any heat on them. Here we are all this time later. There's only 2 people to contact from that allegation, Eric Davis and Thomas Wilson, right? And yet half of those people at least have not been contacted yet. Well, and that's a big concern for me.
I've heard different. There's whispers on the grapevine, man. I don't know, because I've heard other claims.
Jay, don't do it. People will run you into the ground for saying that, because they do it to me too. If you got a troll, oh man, listen. I made that mistake once in my whole life, and you know who I'm talking. You know who you are. I made that mistake once. I will never do that again. I'll never do that again. Where you don't want to say what somebody might have told you about what maybe they told you something they weren't supposed to say. You don't want to say that. You don't want to use that as an argument. You don't want to use that to solidify your position, because if you got a troll, they will rip you apart. They will rip you to shreds for that. And I don't blame them, by the way, because it's honestly that it's not helpful to say, oh well, somebody told me. Well, who is that somebody? How do you know? How do I know that they should trust you? Or I'm sorry. How do we know that we should trust them? And how do we know that maybe you didn't miss it? Maybe you misinterpreted what they said. Maybe, there's a lot of issues with saying that I was told something by somebody. I can't tell you what they said, and I also can't tell you who said it. Like that's not very good for an argument. And so, Jay, I like you, man. I just feel like I feel bad, because I feel like right now the trolls are going to eat him alive for this right here.
It's about people approaching him and
you talking about Wilson?
Yeah, but I don't know how valid that is. But they just came from channels that I happen to just listen to if they say something, and
yeah, the trolls are going to eat him up for this.
Apparently, that could be something that's happened, but I don't.
I mean, unless he's lying in public, whoever you're speaking to, if they hopefully one day they'll come forward. But Wilson himself said it. It was not a guess. Like he was quoted as saying it.
And that was just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Billy Cox, who used to write for, what was it, the Sarasota Sun Herald, I think it was. He's kind of retired from journalism for that periodical, but still does a blog, and has had a connection to Wilson for years.
Yeah, he got statements from him before, I remember.
Quite a few. And Wilson maintains, just as a couple of weeks ago, that nobody from Congress contacted him. So we can, again, lean towards he's lying. Or if that's true, then what concerns me is the elapsed time when you do have members of Congress that are interested in this, submitting it to the congressional record, and not one person has given him a call to say, hey, we're researching this. Can we get some kind of on-the-record statement?
Yeah.
And now fast forward to last Wednesday. Now we have David Grush with such explosive allegations that the web of people that are probably entwined, and you said 30 to 40. I wanted to ask you where you got that from, because I just
directly from David Grush. Again, he said this several times. He said it in several interviews that he talked about 40 people within 4 years of his investigation before he ever came forward with this whole situation.
drawing a blank.
I might be horrendously messing that up. I just thought that there was a moment in there where he said, I've spoken to over 30.
And if anybody wants to fact check me on that, Google it or do your own research. I'm telling you that's what he said. You don't have to believe me. Look it up yourself. Do your own research.
30 or over 40 witnesses over the period of 4.
I'm not talking about you who believe me, by the way. I know that some of you do appreciate my perspective, and some of you do, when I make statements, most of the time, I'm most of the time very accurate on what I say, especially when I'm referring to this topic especially. But there are some who literally don't believe anything that I say, and I have to qualify literally everything that I say at any given point with like documentation and written sworn testimony. So and obviously, again, I'm inflating, I'm kidding, it's not that serious.
4 years when he was referencing something. I might be getting that wrong, so double check me, everyone, before you start quoting that. But I swear to God,
no, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot. There's so many different interviews, and it's so hard to keep on top of it. But yeah, I want to look into that. But my whole point being is that now you've got these explosive claims. Congress wants answers, and that's great. Yet they've kind of went down this path with a much smaller scaled story.
Yeah,
where they only had to call 2 people. And all we have are rumors that they called him, but Thomas Wilson is going on the record in the paper saying,
I will say that this rumor was given to me within the last week, so it kind of is post this apparent phone call or contact from Billy Cox. So it could have been that the timing was perfect and the story's now changed, or this could be completely just hyperbole. So I don't know. I don't want to be definitive about it either way, but it would be great to see him in a congressional setting. I'm sure he just wants to be left well alone from all of this, whether he's complicit or not complicit. This is just a stressful situation for anyone at his age to be dealing with now. So I don't know if you'd even agree to, an invitation. They contacted Oak Shannon. I mean, like, when I got him on for an interview, I said to him, like, the first time I got him on for an interview, I said to him afterwards, there's a potential that this might put you in a bit of a spotlight, maybe some arm of the government might reach out, Congress or Senate or some select committee, and they did. So it just makes me think, if they've reached out to someone like Oak, who, at least in relation to like the Admiral Wilson documents, is just kind of like a peripheral player that was mentioned in the notes, surely they've tried to reach out to the Admiral. But I mean, you'd like to think so if they're doing their due diligence, like you said.
I would hope so.
They inserted it into the congressional record. They're all very much aware of it now. So like, here's a guy to call, Admiral Wilson. Give him a ring.
Yeah, and look, I mean, again, skepticism aside, I encourage stuff like that. I would want to see him under oath. And in one of his statements, he said, "I don't even need to be sworn in, but that he would testify." Meaning, like, he is telling the truth. He doesn't need to be subpoenaed and put under oath and say it again. He'll continue to do so.
Yeah.
So that's admirable that he would do that and put that on the record. But to take it a little broader, this is where, again, turning up the heat with subpoena power, where people that let's say a Thomas Wilson pushed back and said, I'm not going to waste my time with that. No, let's get him in there. Let's figure out a way to get these under oath statements from key figures. And one of the things I posted on social media was kind of a list of, I forget how many, but it was like 8 or 10 people, Thomas Wilson being one of them, of people to get in there and put them under oath. Pentagon spokespeople included. I put them on the list because if they...
Who are they, John? Who are these Who are they? Did you mention Susan Gao? I'm curious because I want to know what this list is. Who are they? Why don't you say their name in this interview? You said everybody else you want to out, people that literally would be risking their lives to come out, people that would risk their careers to come out. Why won't you say the people that are literally in charge of the cover-up? How come you won't mention their names? I wonder why.
There is a campaign to assassinate the character of certain individuals in this conversation and to make this topic look bad. Then let's put people under oath and ask important questions, and that's where I feel moving.
Listen, do not let that go, everyone. Think about how vague he's being right now. That vagary is because he's not talking about people. He's defending someone, right? If there are people who've been, then we gotta ask them, who are you talking about? Be specific like you have been up to this point. Why are you being ambiguous right now? Why are you being so unclear? He's playing games.
Forward, this is a dream scenario. I don't think it'll happen. But who knows? A dream scenario is a couple days where you have a couple days allotted to a hearing with full day of testimony and rotating witnesses that are coming in to tell their story, and members of Congress that know their stuff and ask important questions. You had mentioned some of them asked really, great questions, which they did. There were a couple that were fantastic. I also think it's because they posted on Twitter and said, hey, what would you like us to ask? And I think that they probably went through like, oh, that's a good one.
That's no bad thing either, I'll say,
No, not at all. No, just putting it into context.
No, for sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to see, and the reality is I hope it's not 6 months to 12 months before something else. We'll see, but you're probably right with that. Yeah, it's going to take more months. The bigger concern, too, because some people will fire back at me, John, you're too patient, the process is working. Just remember, people get voted out of office. So those leading the charge, if things take a year or 2 years or 3 years to kind of play out, those leading the charge could not be in office by then. And you're going to have rotating priorities. So if a Senator Gillibrand is not necessarily leading the charge with some of the legislation on the Senate side and so on and so forth, that's a big concern too, is you have the momentum now. And that's where I get like some people that have been really pushing for this. And then I think sometimes it's just trying to find a way to attack me in my viewpoint, no matter what I say. But it's interesting for me to see that where you're pushing. Now you have the motivation. Now the snowball is going down the hill and you're like, oh, no, back off a little bit. Let's just let this happen. No, man, you got the motivation now. Like, don't lose it. Run for it. Go for it. Keep pushing. And it's amazing to kind of see that play out. Because look, I'm able to separate what I feel like skepticism wise, remove that from the situation and say, hey, look, put these people under oath. Let's figure it out and see what they say. I fully support it. I don't. I called it a facepalm moment when the Wilson Davis stuff went into congressional record. I don't regret saying that, but since it happened and there's no going back.
He literally said that oh my gosh. I called it a facepalm moment whenever whenever they entered in the Wilson Davis memo into record. Why would you say that? Why would you say, oh, they brought evidence? They're going to put this under, why would they do that? Oh my gosh, really? Because he doesn't believe it's he doesn't think it's authentic. He doesn't think there's anything to those claims. Guys, if it's true, it's one of those loose threads that I talked about during the debate with Drunk Physics, right? It's a loose thread, but it's a very explicitly loose thread. Is there a cover-up? Yes. Are people being, is this being obfuscated? Yes. Are there people that are not letting people who are supposed to have clearance and classification to be able to access these programs? Yes. Then is it relevant? No. Nope, not relevant at all. Nope. See, it's not. It's different. It's different. That's John Greenwald's position. It's relevant.
Then yeah, let's get that testimony under oath.
Yeah.
And it concerns me the amount of time again that has elapsed since they did that to now.
Well, it's good to be skeptical, I think. But I mean, I would imagine ultimately you would like to be wrong about the Admiral Wilson documents, right? You'd like to be wrong. It would be.
And I've said that a ton of times, probably on your show before.
Yeah, I think you have. Yeah. Just to get it on the record, like.
Yeah, this is where Jay ties him down. This is good.
Yeah. No, I would love for it to be true. And if you don't mind, if I can just address one thing, because this is often fired back at me when I either say stuff like that or that people claim that I don't want that to happen because they call it my job. It's not even my job. I love my hobby of the Black Vault, but I have a job that has nothing to do with any of this. And they say that job is over, that then there would be no need for the freedom of information.
It will be over.
Information Act. And let me tell you, if that happened, like, so let's say the Wilson Davis documents are confirmed tomorrow morning. Just because they are confirmed does not mean they go, okay, shroud of secrecy has been lifted. Here you go. Here's everything we have. Not a chance. Then you will need the Freedom of Information Act or something like this process more than ever. And I think that some people don't realize that if
once we find out this is all true, we're going to need a bunch of redacted files released on my website. You got it. Trust me. You need me more than now than ever. Now that, yo.
If we're lucky enough to get that type of a disclosure, Wilson Davis documents are real, David Grush is right, there are these secret crash retrieval programs, I guarantee that you will not have a full carte blanche access to everything and anything.
And neither will you. Neither will you. You'll just be pulling up redacted files where they don't tell you anything.
That used to be classified before. No, on the contrary, they will likely still have a big layer of secrecy on this, but you can build off of their confirmation of, again, whatever it may be. So you're going to need the Freedom of Information Act more than ever. And I think that that's one of the biggest misconceptions about all of this is they meaning people who are skeptical to my viewpoint think, oh no, you're just vying to stay alive in all of this. And it's kind of laughable because, again, I think people don't realize you will need this more than ever. Even that Schumer amendment, I mark my words, if that passes, that's a bad thing, right? The JFK Assassination Review Board, which they modeled that out.
Oh my gosh. Yo. Oh my gosh. This guy, I can't respect this anymore.
After was, I don't want to say a failure, but it fell way short on what was promised. There are still thousands of pages withheld that they will not give you. So if that's the model, you're all
throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's what John Greenwald suggests. Hey, listen, if the process doesn't go the way that I wanted to right now, just throw everything out. Just forget all it, and let me tell you. Dude, if an entire organization is working on releasing thousands of documents and it takes them years to do, how do you think you're going to do on your lonesome? Dude is tripping right now. He's going insane, dude.
already off to a bad start. On top of that, the eminent domain that the government comes in and claims UFO or UAP related material is awful. People aren't looking at.
Okay, that much I'm a little concerned about. I don't know what that process is going to look like, but I'm going to be honest, that one's a concern for me too.
That, at least from what I've seen, because they will go in and confiscate it, and then they will decide on whether or not you and I should know about it. What good is that? No, you should not.
Not probably one of the first good points he's made all night.
Not have that at all. The 25-year rule, which they've got inputted in there, granted, it's kind of inherited from, I think it's Executive Order 13526, but regardless, that's kind of standard anyway.
The Armenian, did I mention that yesterday? We're going to talk about that Monday. Because that's going to be a long conversation, the Armenian. I've got some information about that that I'm going to share with you all tomorrow, Monday, because we're going to do 4 hours tomorrow. So I don't want to just spend a couple hours. No, I don't have enough time today. I got to be out of here by 4 o'clock. I have to be 4 p.m. my time, which is in 30 minutes. But tomorrow we're going to be talking about the idea of if the government tells the human race, the public, about what this phenomena is, will Lucifer be unleashed onto the world? This is such a wild. Will Lucifer be unleashed on the entire world? Why am I talking about this? Because people within the DOD claim that they believe this phenomena is demonic. And I always wanted to know why they thought that. Now, I don't know about you. Some people don't care about, they don't want to look into these things, don't want to research it. That's literally why I'm here. That's literally what I'm doing. I'm doing that for a reason, okay? Now, I'll continue. I'm sorry. But yes, the Armenian. Tomorrow we're going to talk about that. It's really interesting stuff. By the way, it could be the DOD is the hero in this situation. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that I believe that. Okay? Seriously. Because I think that there's but if this is the perspective of them, maybe they believe in their head that they're being the hero of the situation right now. That's what's being alleged by Tom DeLonge. That's what's being alleged by Louis Elizondo, and we're gonna talk this. We're gonna look at some people who are connected to the DoD and DoD members who explain why they believe this.
Wait, but if that's a fallback 25 year after creation of a document, which means that they can sit on it, my record FOIA request response was 14 and a half years, which means the amount of time that you will wait for some of these documents to be declassified will essentially far outweigh any time spent on a FOIA request. Long-winded way of saying, I think people are championing things.
You guys need me. Trust me. I can get the documents faster than they. Trust me, I can. Well, then where are they, John? Oh, they're redacted. Oh, okay, John.
That may hurt in the long run. That the secrecy layers are not weakening with this or disappearing, but rather they're strengthening. And I was excited, too, to see Schumer's amendment until I read it. And then I went, oh, God, I don't think a whole lot of people are really seeing the repercussions of that. But the bottom line is, you model it after something, you can now look back at that something, see how it turned out, and it wasn't good. And I speak as somebody who followed the records releases.
I'm not going to contend with that. Maybe he has a point. We don't know yet.
Very, very closely when it came to the JFK Assassination Review Board, and created dedicated search engines just to that, and created a searchable database of those documents literally the morning of all of those releases. And there were quite a few in the last 3-4 years. So I had watched that very, very closely. It's not just a guess. It turned out that what they
Congratulations, Derek. My gosh.
promised and what we were told was not what was true. And in the end, they still remain heavily, heavily classified in the tune of, I believe it's like 3,000 or 4,000 pages.
Right. Well, no, I mean, exactly. It's
out of how many, John? Out of how many?
This is a subject that has an extremely high level of sensitivity to it. So the idea that this is just going to all be thrown out on the table because we're in this process now is not a sensible way to look at it, in my opinion.
I know that you guys might not have caught that, but he just said that John Greenwald's position is nonsensical. Dude, that was such a very, I don't think he probably didn't mean to say it like that, because he's been respectful to this point. But yeah, he's right. You think they're going to just release all these documents? These are sensitive. This is a sensitive topic, dude. What are you talking about? Why are you even suggesting that? Why don't they release everything right now to me, right now, or else I don't believe any of it? If you don't tell me everything, Mommy, they won't tell me everything, Mommy. I think they're lying because they won't tell me everything that I want to know right now, Mommy. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You want me to give you the same treatment I gave little Mickey? There you go, honey.
There are so many different checks and balances involved in putting all of this out there, especially when it implicates the military industrial intelligence architecture and all of these different contractors. I mean, I was talking to some of my Patreons the other day in a voice chat, and we were just saying, I mean, they're hardly going to throw their own contractors in jail. You know, this is, if anything, is also a piece.
Again, please listen to an actually intelligent position that Jay has right now. He's presenting and laying it out perfectly.
PR nightmare just for the wider world and for their adversaries if suddenly you're throwing, Raytheon and Lockheed and Boeing contractors in prison for subverting congressional oversight and misusing the budgets. And, this is a PR nightmare that the government doesn't need, especially at this point in time when there's a lot of political tribalism and division, and things are pretty weakened state in the Western world in terms of government.
Yo, Jay is so intelligent and clever and witty, and he's knowledgeable. This is exactly the position that any sane and logical person would have. I honestly couldn't have put it in better words. I'm not gonna lie. I stay in my lane here. That's why I'm a commentator and not a journalist. That's how a journalist talks about this situation.
It's not just in America, but in the UK and in many other Western countries. There's just a lot of fragility in government and how the body politic views its own government. So it's not a good time to be doing that kind of thing. And so they're going to obviously be some pretty substantive layers of secrecy involved to bring in this kind of information out. So I agree with you. The FOIA is still going to be a part of that process, of course. I would say that the people that are just truly saying, like, oh, you're holding on to your little career, and like they just don't like the way you talk, John. Like, at the end of the day, I've had the same kind of things thrown at me.
Okay, to be fair, I'm honestly just joking. I don't know if that's if he's like worried about his career. I don't think he's worried about his career at all. I joke when I say, oh, he's gonna lose his job. It's a joke. Maybe it's a childish joke. Maybe it's immature. I'm okay with that because again, that's what I do here. But But to be fair, I do think that John Greenwald is defending his position. He literally has done nothing but defend his position. Oh, you guys are going to need me more now than ever. That is not a passive, oh, I'm not worried about my position. That's a, guys, please don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. I'm telling you, this, what they're doing isn't going to work. Only what I'm doing is going to work. That's literally what he just did. So to be fair to myself, even though I'm being childish and joking and all, all that stuff and making these facetious, comments, I think there's truth to it. I do think there's truth to John Greenwald being afraid that his job is over. His business, his extracurricular activities are over.
For me, I don't think there's anyone really that could argue that I'm against any sort of disclosure process, that I don't want to see this information out there. I've just been a little bit critical and a little bit skeptical of certain elements of this whole narrative as it's unfolded since 2017. And that's enough to be targeted by some individuals. And this is something I wanted to bring up with you anyway. I wanted to dive into this kind of element because there are these individuals on Twitter, quite a few. I would say that your fans outweigh them, but there's still quite a few people that are saying that you're a debunker, that you're a skeptical debunker, and this is all you're trying to do. So for the record, what is...
Platonic Zombie is correct. He said that it's in the military's interest to look at this as a threat. Just saying. 100%. I don't dispute that at all. The question is it a threat? So I don't know. It seems like, according to the information that we received, we can conspiracy theory our way through this and say it's Project Bluebeam, but according to the information that we're being told by whistleblowers, by people who have first-hand accounts, by those who are involved in this, they are claiming that there is a threat. Now, the question is, to Platonic Zombie's point, to what extent are we talking about threat? I think Elizondo mentioned that threat doesn't mean hostile intent. To be very, very, very clear, I agree with that entirely. Threat does not mean hostile intent. So again, a landmine is a threat to the life of people around it. Now, is a landmine going out looking for people to kill? No, but if you step on one, you're gonna die. So the question is, what level of threat are we talking about, and how do we put that into perspective for the American people in the world to see?
What's your current position on UFOs? Like, what they potentially represent?
I don't think they're real. I think it's all the government. I think it's all just government operations and government secret spy plane programs. That is what John Greenwald believes. Now, he's going to play this game, but that's what he believes, because, you got to look past the sophistry. By the way, I know somebody in the chat is named Sophistry. I don't know if they're here, but they're playing. He's going to play this game. He's going to dance here. Let's watch him dance.
Do you hold any belief that there could be a non-human intelligence interaction at play here? Like, how do you actually feel about UFOs in general?
Yeah, I think this is a point that's largely missed by the crowd that kind of came in post-2017.
Right.
To where
right.
I have long been an advocate that these phenomena, I think there's multiple facets to it, are absolutely real. I think a large part, of course, are explainable by earthly means. But when you look at the actual evidence, you look at what has come out through FOIA, those who trash FOIA, I've often learned, have never used FOIA, nor do they understand.
John Greenwald literally trashed FOIA because of, especially, and again, watch his video, especially with respect to UFO classified information. He literally crapped on it on a recent episode of his, where he said, man, I've never seen anything as ridiculously overclassified as when I try to FOIA request UFO documents. Everything's redacted, and sometimes they delete files. They when they get back to me, they say they deleted them. So what are you talking about, John? Why are you being? This is the point. He's disingenuous.
Understand what has been revealed by it. When you look at just that, I don't claim FOIA is everything, but just focus in on that for a second here. That is enough to show me that this is something that lacks a full explanation, that there is no way across the board that the government knows what's truly going on with all of these things. Now we understand that because they're talking about it, but keep in mind, I'm entering my 27th year come August of filing FOIAs, and
27 years of filing FOIA document requests, and we've learned, John, we've gotten nowhere. This conversation has never been centered around what you... And no offense. I think I respect his efforts. I do not respect the way that he's framing the situation, because right now, he's being left in the dust. All that work that he's done is for nothing. compared to what's being done with. If John Greenwald didn't do any of his FOIA requests, we'd be still further now than we ever had been, with or without him. We do not need John Greenwald. We do not need him FOIA requesting these documents. We don't need him at all. We do not need it, because guess what? Anyone can FOIA request it. But you know what anyone can't do? Bring forth classified information to members of Congress so they can validate those things and put them under and make statements under oath about crash retrieval programs of non-human technology and non-human bodies being recovered by the United States government and their contractors. We will never get that by FOIA request. We will never get that by FOIA requesting.
And seeing the evolution of this conversation. Now, does that equate to alien to me? No. I'm going to need a little bit more than that. But I can also...
Okay, real quick. Yes, the Armenian, don't worry about the bot. Ignore the bot, please. Ignore the bot.
Also safely say I haven't taken it off the table. And the reason why I say that is because you have technology being displayed in numerous government documents that lack, number one, an explanation, but number two, has no technology that could be attributed to it. So there's ones that are going back 40, 50 years, but showing airspeeds both confirmed by radar and visual sightings of stuff that's far surpassed what we had at the time. Now,
again, that is an excellent thing to say, but and I'll give kudos where it's due. That's a fair and intelligent take.
Fast forward to 2023, we're at that point where if these were secret government craft of some kind or something that could be connected to all of that and fill all the mysterious gaps over the decades of these UFO sightings, we're at that point where we should be able to do that, and yet we can't. They still remain a mystery. You look at the 1976 Iran incident, well documented through the NSA, the CIA, even sent to the White House at the time. All years after the government said, oh, we've solved the UFO mystery, there were things going on around the world that were just not something that we can, even in 2023, attribute a viable, undeniable explanation to. And I find that something that really needs to be looked at. I think a lot of people forget that history that we have built this UFO conversation on. They think it's all started in 2004 with the Nimitz, jumped to 2015 with the Roosevelt stuff, and here we are with present day pilots talking about their range fouler incidents and so on and so forth. But there is a long history here just using FOIA documents that's solid. And
now that I give kudos for. Legit. I really wish John Greenwald was on our side here. I don't understand. I really don't get what's going on with him, because this is a John Greenwald that I remember right here. This is the guy that I looked up to, literally looked up to this guy. I respected everything he did. This is the guy that I liked. This is the guy that I respected before. This right here.
And that to me is what keeps me going. Again, even after decades, can I tell you undeniably it's alien? No, absolutely not. I think there's a huge possibility the government is absolutely clueless. They have zero idea what's going on. They don't have the answers, and they're holding it in some vault of their own somewhere. But rather, we're being encroached by things that we just can't understand. And maybe there is crash wreckage somewhere out there. If there is, I don't think it's prevalent. So this leads into some...
All right, here we go. I don't know. Let's hear. He's going to descend back into this crap again.
Some other grandiose conversation. I don't know if you want to go here. But I believe that if we do have crash wreckage of some kind or a craft, we don't have lots of it, meaning they're not crashing every 5 to 10 years. I think that it would be like literally a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. And that in itself would...
He believes that because he believes that if there are non-human intelligences, that they would never make mistakes like that, maybe once. Again, brain dead take, man, because you have to, nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. What are you talking about? Why would you have that position?
Would not be... That would not be in the hands of somebody that would be testifying before Congress.
There we go. Right there. David Grush is lying. That would not be in the hands of somebody who's testifying in front of Congress. Why don't you just say it? David Grush is lying. Because if we did have that, he would never have that information. He's lying. Again, listen to how the grift in real time. The grift. This is the grift, y'all. This is the grift. It's clear as day. You cannot miss it.
I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but where I'm going with this is I truly believe that if we had something like that, a list of people who were truly aware of it would be incredibly small. And on top of that, we would never hear their names.
So what he's saying is that in his mind, if there are crash retrieval programs or crash retrieval of non-human technology, we would never find out about it. But I want you guys to trust me to find out about it if it ever does exist, because I will find out. And so the guy that's out there right now, who's the guy who's claiming that he has found out about it, I don't believe him, because if he did, I can't find it. So therefore, how can he find it? So therefore, it's not possible. Dude, this is hubris in right here in front of our eyes. This is literally just cocky.
I don't buy it. I don't buy that they would be out there in the UFO conversation talking to News
There you go.
Nation or anything.
He thinks that David Grush is lying. Bottom line, he can play the game all he wants to. He thinks that David Grush is lying.
Thing like that, but on the contrary, we would never hear about it. And
or at the very least, he thinks that David Grush has been fed misinformation or lied to.
You look at our secrecy programs, our programs shrouded in secrecy through the decades, you would have leaks periodically, but not like this, meaning there had been aircraft and programs in development for decades and decades before we ever even found out about it. So when the government wants to keep secrets, they will. Now, is this that moment where the reality of extraterrestrial bodies and technology and craft are being revealed? Quite possibly, right? I'll give that a chance. But history has also shown that possibility has been around for decades and decades. There have been people that have, come out. So, that's why I wrestle on the fence, because I don't know what to think. I want to give it a shot, but history tells us it doesn't always play out that way. So it goes back to why I say maybe the government is absolutely kind of clueless on this, that periodically there are craft of unknown origin that are zipping around that we see on our military instrumentation, the pilots are seeing, and they're absolutely clueless. And that's where I think the threat to national security comes in, is the pure knowledge that we are weaker than whatever that is, we being America, and that's why the U.S. military is forced to take it seriously now, even though I can prove beyond any shadow of a doubt they took it serious prior. There were documents.
Yeah, I have no idea why fake news is a bad word according to Twitch, but you guys can say fake news. I don't care. I have no idea why they did that.
Documentation, even from the Air Force, that said UFOs, that was not from the 60s, but rather the 2000s. So the evidence is there that they've taken it seriously. But now they're in the corner that they have to say it out loud. And what do they do? Just because they say it out loud, their secrecy is strengthening even more. And I think because at the end of the day, they don't know what to do. They truly are clueless. So it's fun to think of.
Okay, now this is what I mean. This is why it's so hard with John Greenwald. He's grifting in real time here. I cannot be the only one who notices this. Listen to me, guys. You all in the chat are far more intelligent than even the people certain people that might be in the UFO field. No, I shouldn't say intelligent, because there's some intelligent people that have wrong takes. Let me rephrase that. I should say measured in your perspective. Because what I think is happening in the field is that people have presuppositions about the phenomena, and anyone who challenges that or speaks about it in a way that doesn't align with their belief system, they fight against it. Now, they're intelligent people. To be honest, there's a lot of smart people in the field, but they lose their minds, they lose their objectivity when they let their belief systems and their perspectives, skew the reality of the situation. And so, in real time, there are people who think that John Greenwald is a good guy. He's honest. He's authentic. Where all of you in the chat are, I hear y'all. You see right through his grift. You see right through it.
About that they have all the answers and all the proof, and they're sitting on it because they're some all-powerful entity. I think there's just as big a chance that they are absolutely clueless, don't have the evidence that we need to really prove this, but are scratching their heads nonetheless. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but the evidence is there for me to keep pushing. And I don't consider myself a debunker, but I do consider myself.
You are now. You didn't used to be, John. You used to be a well-respected journalist who everybody loved because of all the things you've done for us in the community. Today, I don't know who you are anymore, dude. I don't know who you are anymore, my guy. I'm very disappointed. It's sad to see, and I wish that things were different with you.
myself someone is not afraid to debunk, and we shouldn't be afraid to debunk. We also shouldn't be afraid to question, because I think at the end of the day, when you do the approach like and I see a lot of others do as well, when you question the truth, you're not going to change it. It'll survive anything you throw at it. So,
not if you find a very compelling smear or you implement a very compelling smear campaign. That's it. That's what he's doing. He's putting in a smear campaign. He's doing a smear campaign against David Grush and the entire disclosure movement that's happening right now. It's the beginning. It's not full disclosure. We're getting there, but this is further than we've ever been, and he's smear campaigning the whole thing. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing right now. So again, the truth can survive, but against lies, when you throw in lies and obvious and all these different like misdirection type of comments, and you're playing games, dude. You know what you're doing.
I don't understand the pushback. I mean, even Luis Elizondo said when he kind of first entered the scene in 2018, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, but question everything, including myself.
Yeah.
So when he's saying stuff like that, and then you question him, and then all of a sudden you're like some big...
Now this is the grift. This is the grift. Oh, I questioned him. No, you smeared him, man. Again, Again, I don't believe this, and I'm just using this as an example. Does Greenwald wear pink underwear at nighttime? I'm just asking questions. I never said that he does wear green underwear. I'm just asking, and people are attacking me for just asking questions. I mean, if I can't even ask questions, then what's the point of journalism here? That's what John Greenwald's doing. That's exactly what he's doing. It's a grift.
Devil. That just kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit, but hey, it's kind of par for the course and is part of this conversation.
I think you made an important distinction there, which is that you're not a debunker, but you're not afraid to debunk. And I think a good researcher, someone that's genuinely trying to get to the truth, will recognize that this subject in particular is actually, and I think everyone really, if they just sat there and really looked through all of the history of this, is inundated with bullshit. It's just inundated with either intelligence interference or just people role-playing and going, you know what, I'm going to say I'm in the secret space program and I was in this project on...
That does happen. It's all over Gaia TV. Oh my gosh, how do they get away with it?
Mars, and I fought the aliens in this other planet, and it's just like, you know, this...
I watch that on Gaia. I watch Gaia like I watch movies. It's so cool because they have such great stories. Those are stories. Those are stories. Those are obvious. Again, they seem like fabrications if I've ever heard any. How can you possibly say you were in an intergalactic, battle with aliens from there? They mauled human beings and you survived? How did you survive? Come on, man. Really? Come on, man. But there's no way to prove it, though. I'm just telling you. You just got to trust me, bro. That's literally the trust me, bro situation that John Greenwald is trying to compare to what's happening with David Grush. Big difference, y'all.
A lot of that. There's conferences that literally just revolve around the kind of ever evolving door of BS claims with no backgrounds. And then there's some really good conferences where they bring some pretty solid information and they talk about it in a more rational way. But there is a whole cottage industry that's been developed around this subject where people profit from just telling stories. I mean, I've said this a few times. I've had people over the last few years reach out, maybe claiming a background, not really giving me much evidence, so it's pretty ambiguous as to whether or not they are or who they say they are. And they're saying interesting things. And, there are people that leverage that kind of stuff. They'll go up on stage and they'll just say, a source of mine, a contact of mine from the NSA, from this aid. And it's like, you haven't actually validated that person. You've just been given a little hint that they might be someone interesting and you've run with the story. And there's a lot of people like that. So yeah, I think with this subject, you have to be really discerning and you have to be critical and you have to be willing to scrutinize. And, I think the people that look at what you're doing, where you're looking at these issues and sometimes tearing them apart, let's be honest, because there are some pretty dubious occurrences recently, like the military flare event scenario that was being
29 Palms,
yeah
29 Palms is questionable. We still don't know what's going on, but it has not been fully debunked.
I mean, that I think a lot of people actually agreed, okay, this is starting to look a lot like military flares right now.
There is a compelling argument to be made about that, to be totally honest, but I don't know. And I don't like, this is why I don't like posting videos about sightings, because a lot of times they're just fake. It's very difficult to ever tell if a sighting is real based off of a camera picture. Picture. So I don't mess around with that a lot. One time I did it, and it was found out that it was fake, and I'm not going to take it down because I want people to know it's fake. But I was embarrassed because it's like, dang, like I didn't know if it was real. I said I don't know if it's real. I wanted somebody to validate it, and somebody within minutes proved in real time that it was fake. It was made with a movie company, and they admitted it on Twitter.
And this is not an attack. I mean, yes, sometimes people like yourself might get fed up of hearing these claims getting circulated, and it can maybe come off a little sharp when you're going, look, this is a bunch of military flares. Most of the evidence, the majority of the evidence is pointing towards that. So there are people that see that as you attacking, and I can understand that. But at the same time, if you just let these types of claims circulate and compound on each other, it's just evidence for the skeptics to say, hey.
Okay, but the problem with this is, and guys, I have to go in a couple minutes here. Seriously, I'm so sorry, but I gotta go. The problem with this is this, and I want you all to please, we watched the meat of this conversation. The rest of it's kind of a bit of just kind of like some buddy talk, but it's not really that relevant to hear. If you want to hear the whole thing, go to Project Unity, please. Check out the video. It is a good video to watch. We watched the good part. We watched the entire good part. I wanted to get that part in there at least. But ultimately, the reality is if you focus all of your time on debunking, you are a debunker. John Greenwald spends 90% of his time on his show debunking, smearing people, accusing them of espionage, accusing them of being a traitor to the United States of America, accusing them of selling classified secrets. He did that with Grush. He did that with Lou Elizondo. He suggested it with Christopher Mellon. He suggested something else with Christopher Mellon. I'm sorry, that he did not say that I remember with Christopher Mellon. But that's what John Greenwald is doing. He is literally a debunker if you've ever seen one. Now you can sometimes go and say, oh, now look, there's a classified document that's not redacted and it just says UFO in it and everything else is just names of people. But that's not helpful, John. That's not helpful, John. We can go to YouTube and find out about UFO encounters. We don't need you for that. We do not need you for that.
Hey, see, look, it's like there's nothing to this subject. It's like, no, hang on. Let's cut away all of the bullshit and just find the nice glowing gem rocks in the middle that are really legit and give us this desire to learn more about this subject. Because I'm like you, and we've talked about this privately. I've experienced something. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's related entirely to the UFO subject or whether I should be talking to a shaman in the Amazon basin about my experiences. But something happened that put me on this trajectory. There is a reality to it. There is something to chase here.
What is the Orion Lines? What is that? Am I missing something? What is the Orion Lines?
There is something to grab onto.
All right, listen, everybody. I'm gonna get.
What it is, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident that it's not.
Yeah, we're pretty much done here. So check it out, y'all. I gotta go. I gotta get going here. So I want to say, I appreciate. Let me see if my friend is. This is my boy from a long time ago. I haven't heard from him in years, man. My gosh, dude. Hold on. So anyway, yeah, we'll have to talk about the Orion. I have to learn about that, man. I got to learn about that first, okay? If you guys have the Orion Belt, if it's in the content section, by the way, I have your content section. I'm going to pick a day where I go through all of it. We're going to go through all of it live. But there is a couple of things. I want to wait until there's a day because there's not a lot of content on there yet. There's some, but there's not a lot. Remember, we do this for 4 hours on the weekdays. And to fill that some of that stuff in, it's going to take some time. Plus, the one video that you sent me, the dark journalist, I need to watch that because it seems like a very dry interview. And I don't want to waste people's time with something that's just a bunch of crap. So that content Discord thing is just, it's for me to bring it on the show. So Drunk Physics posted something really interesting in there. I got to be careful with that because there's a strange link to it. But I'm gonna find a way to go in a secure browser to get that information out. We're gonna talk about that one of these days. But I want to put it all into a video. But I need more. You guys got to give me more content, and please make it interesting. If it's something that I don't know about, I can't give commentary because I'll just be giving an ignorant commentary. I don't know. It's something that I don't understand or don't know about. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give an uninformed commentary on something, or at least not a completely uninformed commentary. Hold up. So, hold on one second. Yeah, give me 1 second, everybody. But either way, I appreciate that. Oh my gosh, my chat's up, dude. Close the chat. Oh, I didn't close the chat. I made it worse. Shoot. I'm gonna have to clip that. Dag nabbit. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. You got to study young Padawan. I said, yeah. All right, guys, listen, I do got to go. But listen, I want to tell you guys something. I want to say this now because I mentioned this last month. I'm going to mention it again. Guys, I do need support for the show. If I do not get support, I won't be able to continue doing this. So I know that I literally hate doing this, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to post in the chat my GoFundMe and my Patreon here. If you guys can support me, please consider doing so. If you do think that I bring value to the show and to your lives, ladies and gentlemen, consider supporting me. I got to be able to justify spending the time doing this versus something else. So the support it is going to help me keep doing this. I want to do this, but I will have to make decisions if I can't. If I don't get to the goal that I need to get to for the month. And we're only 1 week in, y'all. We're only a couple days in here, so there's plenty of time. But if you can, please, I'm asking for your support again. Like I said, it is essential to keep this show going. It is essential, and I have to do this whole support me thing every time that we have this conversation. So I'm gonna go to Patreon. I'm gonna add that to the chat here, and again, I got some Patreon followers. I appreciate you all. I'm gonna call you out: Rat Peanut, Darren, Robert, Nathan, and Garioki. That's my Patreon followers. And this month, I reset the GoFundMe. So I posted the GoFundMe link in the chat for YouTube. I posted the GoFundMe link in the chat in the Twitch as well. And listen, guys, I love doing this. I love you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Every single one of you. I appreciate everyone. And hold on, I'm gonna put this on the Patreon here. If I don't reach the goal, it's not a big deal. I get it. It's this is a hustle. Yeah, this is a hustle. But I spend a lot of time doing this. I spend a lot of time. This has become a part of my life, and I really want to keep it going. So I really hope that you guys can find the time to try to support me if you can. At the very least, the Patreon is a big help. So in the meantime, again, I'll catch y'all later. I love y'all. I really appreciate you being here, listening to me ramble all the time and challenging me and pushing back on some of the things I say. And I look forward to doing this again tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the government, cults in the government, and is Lucifer running the whole operation with the aliens? Who knows? We're going to find out tomorrow on Dragon Ball Z. Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. Is Lucifer powering up for a new invasion on Earth? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z, where Goku powers up for 3 episodes long, and Gohan and Piccolo are watching with their mouths wide open, completely surprised by how much power Goku has. Is Goku going to destroy the whole planet? Who knows? Find out next time